myself. This is the GameCube, and the GameCube was probably the best system Nintendo ever made. Well, no, the N64 would give it a run for its money in its time, but the GameCube was just so expandable. It was great.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yes, I have a very rare piece, and I didn't even know this. This right here is a component connector for the GameCube. Back at the turn of like 2000 or so, when right before these came out, hardly anybody had component-ready TVs. But like an idiot, I went out as a college student with my credit card, and I had a component TV. And I bought that cable from Walmart for like next to nothing, and then they stopped making them. I found out that cable they only made 200,000 of, and then they stopped making them all together. But more than that, when they stopped selling that cable, they stopped offering GameCubes with a component connector. This is just blank on most people's systems. If you bought a GameCube after like, I think it was like 2003, it didn't even have that thing on it. So that little component connection cable right there is worth like $200 on eBay. I didn't know.
Wow, that's crazy.
Anyway, the games, again, these are all the Zeldas. Some of these are pretty rare because you had to buy a certain type of GameCube to even get a couple of these. And obviously I only bought one GameCube, so I have my ways.
Right.
I had friends that bought them and stuff, and I'd swap them. Suckers. This is pretty cool. This is a bongo. It's for the Donkey Kong games. You like raised and you could play games and stuff. But anyway, that thing there is basically the Super Game Boy of the GameCube. You stick it on the bottom. You actually mount this thing on top of it like this, and then you screw it in so that it's locked into place, and it let you play Game Boy games, Game Boy Advantage games.
All the way back to original Game Boy?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And you could play Game Boy Advantage and all this other stuff. That is the original Game Boy. Again,
yeah, it's the best-selling system ever.
Yep. You either played this, owned it, or you never got to the age of 5.
Huh.
But I have a couple things that most people didn't. The Game Boy printer,
yeah.
people haven't heard of, and they're like, well, what do you print? And I'm always like, oh, you print the pictures that you take with the Game Boy camera. And usually they haven't heard of that either. The Light Boy lets you play in the dark, obviously, pretty straightforward. The Game Genie's not a Nintendo system, but that's only because Nintendo didn't make a cheating system, so I had to buy one elsewhere. Those are all my games. I have all the local Nintendo-made games, Zelda, Metroid, all the Marios, and then the Donkey Kongs. This is the Game Boy Micro. It was a very, very rare, kind of a tweener system between the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
It was really shiny and awesome. I don't know why they never made a chrome one like that again, but it was sweet. It's smaller, the battery lasts longer, and the screen is much clearer. Of course, then it was blown away by the Game Boy Color, who had a clear screen and a color screen. This was about the time in my life when my brother was actually beginning to play video games too, so I have 2 of these. And he and I were able to play dually linked games. He had the green one, I had the blue one. And we could play linked games like Zelda and exchange certain items that we got in the game using the link cable. And we each had our own little case and everything, so there's a Game Boy Color.
So you stole it from him?
He didn't want it. He would have just given it away. See, that's the thing. I'm not a collector. I'm not a collector. I'm just a pack rat. I never got rid of this stuff. It's not like I set out to collect video games when I was 4. I just never got rid of them. This is the Game Boy Advance. It is what it is. It came out. The purple one was the only one in stock when I was there. I would have gotten something else. These cables here let you connect to your Game Boy, or I'm sorry, your GameCube, and you could play games like Zelda, Wind Waker, and then you had like a little fairy in your hand on your Game Boy Advance that would give you like clues and stuff about where you were in the game, or you could like use it as a map screen and see where you were.
Cool.
It was pretty cool. These are all the games. Of course, Zelda's, of course, and then Metroid. They went back and retrofitted a lot of the old Nintendo and even some of the Super Nintendo games and ported them directly to it. So I got like Dr. Mario and then the original Super NES's Zelda you can play in your hand. Behind you there is the Game Boy Advance SP. It's basically just a backlit Game Boy Advance. And it's a flip up. The battery lasts longer. It charges instead of using batteries every 2 hours. It was pretty nice. And then to the right of that is, I think, arguably one of the coolest systems. That is a Game Boy Advance, the exact size of the original Nintendo controller. So you feel, when you're playing Mario on it, you feel like you're playing it on a Nintendo controller. It's really cool.
That's a pretty good idea.
I always thought it was pretty awesome. And it's the exact same size. We put laying next to each other, which we could because they're in the same room. They're the same size. It's pretty cool. This is the Nintendo DS Lite. I never bought a Nintendo DS, and I never saw the need for buying another one, even though I obviously have bought duplicitous systems in the past. I just never bought a Nintendo DS.
I didn't know you had the Virtual Boy.
This is the Virtual
Oh
Boy.
my God.
Very rare
Whoa.
system. But here's the thing. Again, I'm not a collector. I was just a kid at the right place at the right time. Right around 1996, these were causing like spasms over in Japan, and it wasn't that good selling of a systems anyway, or well selling of a system. I don't know which one, but they stopped making them, and they basically just said, look, if you want these, take them. I got this brand new at Walmart for $29,
Oh, wow.
and it came with Red Alarm. And I think I got each of the games for $15. The other two games, it kind of was
So does it look like virtual reality?
Yeah, it is. It's actually pretty cool. This thing here snaps on the back of this here, and you suck it to your face, basically, and it looks like some monster trying to eat your face. Maybe that's another reason it didn't sell well, but it is pretty cool. I never really had any headaches and stuff, but people said it gave them nausea and headaches. I guess you had to be a certain type, but regardless, these things are worth like $200 now.
That is crazy.
Wow. And mine still works.